We want to take a moment to recognize June's episode sponsor, who we are so grateful for, Heartland Chiropractic. Located in Monticello, Georgia, Dr. Lindsay and her staff have been restoring health naturally for 10 years. At Heartland Chiropractic, it's not just about chiropractic care, it's about building better lives. Their team truly listens, treats every patient like family, and serves with purpose and compassion. We're proud to partner with a business that shares our commitment to impact, service, and community. Call them today for a free consultation, 706-468-6500. Vertigo, neck pain, whiplash, they can help come up with a personalized plan for you. That's 706-468-6500. Thank you, Heartland Chiropractic, for supporting the Impact Show this June.
What's going on? Welcome back to Impact Podcast. This is your host, Jeremy, and Maddie, our co-host, is here as well. So we're excited about that. We have a unique guest with us today. Can't wait to hear some stories. His name is Myron Fontaine. We're just going to dig right in. Myron, you have a name called the Prison Doctor, and our audience probably may or may not have seen your stuff. And so what we want to do is talk to the folks today that don't know what you do. I'd like to start off with who you are personally, if you could. Just tell us about who you are. Who is Myron?
Oh, first of all, thank you guys for having me here. Let me start by saying this. I went to prison. For 20 years of my life for vehicular armed robbery. I stole a car when I was 19 years old in Detroit, Michigan. Come from good stock. My father was a Motown funk brother. The horn you hear on Marvin Gaye's What's Going On and Let's Get It On by Marvin Gaye, and What You See Is What You Get, and In the Rain by the Dramatics, and all those songs my father played on. So the sax is my dad. So I grew up very privileged in my time. My mom was a registered nurse. Two of my brothers were law enforcement, Wayne County sheriffs. One is a commander in Denver, Colorado. My other brother was a percussionist with the Alvin Ailey Dance Theater of Harlem, where he played drums for Alvin Ailey and Savon Glover. So I come from good stock. None of that stopped me from making a boneheaded decision one day and picking up a gun and committing an armed robbery. I stole a car at gunpoint, hanging with some guys that I thought at that time was my friend. I was 19 years old. I'm a little bit older now. And it cost me. So I went to prison for 20 years of my life. Went into prison knowing that I was better than my environment, that I didn't belong there. However, that was my reality, so I had to make the best of it. I studied everything that prison system offered, through the self-help groups like Thinking for Change, Cage Your Rage, Emotions Anonymous, you name it, whatever group they had, I studied it. I came very proficient at the Bible and the Quran as well. I studied everything that you could think of, because in prison you have nothing but time, so you want to read and make best of your time, so I did that. Fast track, darn it, 20 years later, I was very favored by the wardens and all the officers because they knew I had a rep on the yard. I was kind of a tough guy. I went in as a black belt. I got my black belt when I was 18 years old, so I went in prison not having a lot of problems that a light-skinned, jerry-curled, handsome young boy would have going into prison back in that time. Believe me, I didn't have those issues. But so I came home to 20 years later. At this time, my father had died in 1996. He died of a heart attack. My mother was retired and getting elderly. My brothers had moved away. Came home to a neighborhood that was just horrible. You see the houses, how everything was old and just just done. I noticed that the people were different. I hear you got a guy coming out of prison after 20 years, not with a PhD or MBA behind his name. I came out with the letters GED. You understand? a GED. So, you know, you're coming out, you know, behind the eight ball a little bit, and, you know, you're looking at everything that was once familiar to you that wasn't. You know, our kids were wearing pants halfway off their behind, showing their underwear. You know, women were calling themselves the B word, and some responding to it as if it were their name. You understand? I came home to a community where, you know, you knock on somebody's door and it wasn't dad opening the door, it was mom or some grandmother opening the door. And I would see kids as young as 8 years old smoking weed and vaping, and little girls doing the booty dance, very raunchy stuff at the gas station. You pull up to a light and you see some clown blasting rap music that's calling women B's and H's, and you look in the back seat and there's a 3-year-old strapped in the back seat listening to it. You know, I came home to that kind of a world, and this is not hyperbole. I'm telling you real what I came home to. So as a person who was raised with somewhat morals and values and come from good stock, it was something that didn't settle with me as a man. You understand? I decided to do something about it. So I started a 501c3 called Prison Doc Inc. My brother was a police commander, and he was like, hey, man, you got a story to share. Why don't you start networking with the local police departments in Detroit, passing out brochures and telling them that you'll go into the home and mentor these kids and share your experience about what you experienced in prison. I'm sure they would love you. Well, that's an understatement. They loved me. I mean, the whole city of Detroit. I got an award from Mayor Dungan, who was a mayor, Sheriff Benny Napoleon, who was the sheriff at that time. He was the sheriff, and just a lot of great accolades I received from the city, legislatures, and the whole nine, because I was one of the only guys that they knew at that time, and even today, who goes into at-risk youth home, violent kids, gang members, you hear me? Kids that are beating up their mothers at 8 years old and have no resources. You hear me? I was the only guy doing that, and I was very good at it. We have a very high success rate, over 80% success rate. When we engage a child, that at some point that child is going to transform behaviorally. You know, so I was very good at it. My organization, I've been doing that work for 10 years. But that's just a kind of the beginning of my start to the prison doctor, the person I am today. But it all started from just being sick of what I was seeing in our community. I'm sick of, and this ain't just black kids. I'm not talking about just in the hood. I'm talking about in the suburbs. You understand?
Yeah.
White, black, Mexican, I've done it all and do it all.
It don't matter.
You understand?
Yep.
So that's what I came from and what I saw, and that's what I'm on a mission to stop today. So.
Well, you answered at least 10 questions that I had, and that was wonderful summary of what I've seen already. And so that's a good tee-off for our guest to understand what you do. And so we know what it is. So one of the questions I had was, and so for context here, let's talk about years. You said 20 years in prison, 10 years in business. That's 30 years.
Don't give my age. You're giving out too much information. You're giving my age. Okay. I was trying not to give that.
I got you. Okay, no age. But so, and I guess I'm just thinking about the world as it turns, where with you know, for context, let's just say 10 years you've been doing this, and you started out from an idea that you had, right? Well, so let me back up. So you went into prison for something that happened. You got out 20 years later, and you from that day you just had the mission, or was it cumulative? I mean, in other words, and listen, feel free to tell me you don't want to answer this question, but you got out of prison. How long before you started the journey? I mean, was it like immediate, or was it 6 months, a year, or two?
That's a great question. And for the record, I never have any problem with answering any questions. I'm very open. I spoke with the President of the United States. I spoke with DAs and police officers. I spoke with counselors, DFA, you name it. You know, and I'm always very transparent with anybody. So there's never no questions off limits for me. The answer is that I started almost immediately. You understand? Because I came home understanding what was needed. And some people, everybody's not built the same, but I'm very, compassionate when it comes to children, when it comes to understanding the value of life. And when you see people, particularly children, wasting life at the cost of some adult, as a man, you should feel that urge, that call of duty, that sense of duty to want to do something about it. which is why I have a problem with so many men today, um, which is a huge problem. And maybe you'll ask that question, or we can get off into that later. But um, one of my biggest problems that I have today is the lack of men. Um, it is a big problem, big problem.
I can't imagine going into prison and then once you come out 20 years later, how different the world is.
Well,
and your eyes, like in my head, I think of like, okay, so the, electric cars, things like that. You don't really think about the social things.
That's a fact.
It's like, I mean, I've never been to prison, but I can't imagine the changes just from 20 years ago today to today.
Well,
And
I get goosebumps right now because I'm thinking during his talk just a second ago, he talked about coming out and his father had passed.
right, that's,
Oh my God, my dad has also passed, and I happened to be fortunate enough to be here when he did, but it was still a life-changing experience, and so he had to deal with that from behind bars. That's incredible. Okay, so yes, we're going to get to some of that fatherlessness stuff, Myron. Prison prevention specialist. That is what you've called yourself. And so your goal, your mission is to keep kids from having to deal with what you dealt with.
Absolutely correct. We have to be preventative on this stuff. The problem a lot of times in these homes in our community is that we wait until it's too late. We need to be preventative. We need to get ahead of what's going wrong. As soon as you see any kind of warning signs that your child is going in the wrong direction, you need to be very, on top of that, seeking help. A lot of our kids are dying, murdered, killing others, or throwing away their lives from, things that they're doing, and oftentimes you can't blame the child because they're children. You know what I mean? So parents have to step up and get more proactive. You know what I mean? And understand that when you see the warning signs in your child where they begin to, cursing you out or they're, being absent from home, or they're becoming more depressed and things like that, parents have to learn to be more proactive and get ahead of that, to call somebody like a therapist, or if the therapist can't do the job, call someone like me, and I will.
Wow. No, it's a very unique thing. Where did the idea come from? I know you said that you were in prison and you came out and you hit the ground running, but is it something that God gave to you in prison?
You answered my question. As soon as you asked it, my answer is going to be God.
Okay.
I believe that God gives everyone a calling, but it's up to you to hear it. Many of us are not hearing our callings, thus we're living these wayward lives. I was able to sit still for quite some times to hear God. Oftentimes we don't hear God because we're so distracted by the noise. We're so distracted. You understand?
Yes, sir.
So people are not spending time to listen to themselves, to do self-analysis. You know what I mean? And that's a big problem. So in a way, it was my biggest cursing, but also my greatest blessing by going to prison, because I was able to hear from God. Moses went somewhere where he had to hear from God in a place of solitude. Jesus spoke to God in a place of solitude. Everybody that has a prophetic or prophecy in life, then you have to go somewhere where you are shut off from the noise. That is how you hear from God, and that's what prison did for me.
Wow, that's good. That's really good. So, and for those listeners out there that always say want to hear from God, get quiet and get alone with God, some solitude. So, okay, cool. So where is it? Now, I heard you say you're based out of Atlanta, Georgia, but you've been all over the United States, right? So how big is your current program? I mean, do you cover all 50 states, or what do you cover?
Yeah, so we cover all 50 states. We've been told that we're number one in the country, literally, for what we do. We've been to probably close to all 50 states in the past 3 years. We've probably been to maybe 39 different states in the past 3 years.
Wow.
Me and my team, mentoring families. Like I say, we just got back from South Dakota, Minnesota, and Maryland just last week, and we're booked already to go back to California and D.C. again next week. So this is a problem that's happening all over our country, not just in our cities or our states. Children are hurting all over the planet. So I was able to create something where I've duplicated myself with certain other prison doctors, where they're able to be there in that particular state to mentor that family or reach that family quicker than what I could. But I still travel because we still have some states to fill. But right now we have probably 6 states filled right now with prison doctors: Detroit, North Carolina, California, here in Georgia, Mississippi, somewhere else. I don't even know, but we're filling up the nation pretty fast.
So you enroll a kid. So a mother has done all she could do, and she calls you. Do you require anything special to begin to work with her and her kid?
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell me about what that looks like.
Transparency. Yeah, because I've talked to a lot of parents, and oftentimes you don't get the full story. So I can't be effective, to a degree, if I don't have full disclosure of everything that's going on in a parent's or a child's life. And I said that as well, the parent's life as well. Oftentimes I'll get a phone call, or one of my staff will get a phone call, and we're getting, half information, until we get to the house call and we unravel that the mother was actually in an abusive relationship, but she didn't divulge that, out of maybe, embarrassment or whatever. But that kind of information has to be divulged in order for me to understand what that child may have seen his mother go through. You understand? So things like that is one of the things that is an absolute requirement, is just transparency of the whole situation.
I can just imagine. So I was never a police officer, but I used to dabble in law enforcement a little bit. I was a reserve deputy, and I was always intrigued by it. But I can just imagine, based on the things that I've seen, only what you could possibly see. I mean, being the prison system, the law enforcement, the system, it's a thing. And you get into, now, do you work in coordination with law enforcement, or do you?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you do.
District attorney is one of my greatest friends. Yeah,
Nice.
Patty A. Gadsden, Gwinnett County. She's the first African American district attorney of the county, and she's a wonderful DA. I mean, she has shown up to house calls when I called her for backup, because I'm dealing with a kid who bought an arsenal of weapons and has weapons in the home. So I would call her, and she didn't have a problem with dropping what she was doing and brought the police force, her security team, with her.
Nice.
And showed up, so she's always been there for me. So I work with them. One of my national director is a police officer, not too far from here,
Okay.
He's also an ex drill sergeant with the Marine Corps. So, but he's my right hand. He's a partner of mine. So yeah, we work with law enforcement, all state agencies, you name it.
Nice.
I have a question. We talked briefly before. We didn't want to divulge too deep into it, but like when you go into these homes, I mean, in my head, you're talking to the young kids that are, listening to this music, and they've got their tablets and their phones and everything at their fingertips. Is it not just as hard to coach the parents? I mean, I feel like it's just hard to break a habit, if you're the parent that's supposed to rule the roost.
Sure. I would say this. 5 minutes of me entering a home and talking to the parent, I quickly understand what's going wrong with the child. 5 minutes after I enter a home, after I speak with the parent, I quickly understand what's wrong with the child in every case. It's unfortunate that this society of parenting and adults has just completely failed. And being very honest, I just can't lie about that. This community, this generation of parenting, this style of parenting, has failed our children. The lack of attention to children, the way parents have become so selfish in how they spend their time or what's important to them, what they prioritize, has failed. The lack of spirituality in our homes have failed. You understand?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes, sir.
Parents don't pray like they used to. You know what I mean? There's no sense of God in the home no more.
Yeah.
Children have no clue of God.
Yeah,
they don't even believe no more.
Well, that's what I was going to say. How often do you experience a home where you're being called on a house call? And, I mean, have you ever been to one where they know who God is?
Absolutely, sure. Absolutely, yeah. A lot of house calls I've done, just did a few recently. These were, older people. They old school, you know what I mean? And they believe in God, but because there's such a disconnect with the children, and children are up against so much bombardment of social media that it washes out the little time that a parent may have to pour into their children of righteousness or whatever, whether it's Islamic or Christian, whatever it is. You know what I mean? The social media and the culture today is just so strong on these kids, particularly when you give them iPads and you know they're watching things on TV and they're hearing things through music. It just washes away anything of righteousness you try to pour into a child. You know, so if you're not protecting your child's eye gate and their ear gate, and all they're listening to is negative stuff that's being poured into their brains constantly, what do you expect to produce from that?
Well, you know, we talked a little bit before the show about that, but the phones are raising the kids, you know, and I think look, I think we're all guilty at some level. I know I am, where, you know, you've had a rough week and your kid's getting crazy and you give them the phone and you say, here, go play a game or go call a friend or whatever. Mm-hmm. Give me a minute, right? And I mean, I'm guilty of that. And my wife and I, we from time to time, we're overwhelmed with work in the world, and we seem to do that. And so I can only imagine. The whole world does it, and so we gotta stay.
Well, if I may, the whole world.
Thank you, Heartland Chiropractic, for supporting the Impact Show this June. At Heartland Chiropractic, it's not just about chiropractic care, it's about building better lives. Their team truly listens, treats every patient like family, and serves with purpose and compassion. We're proud to partner with a business that shares our commitment to impact, service, and community. Call them today for a free consultation, 706-468-6500.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
The whole world does not do it. You know who don't do it?
Who?
Is the creators of it. Those people who create the iPads, the phones, you know, I don't want to say their names. You already know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, sir.
Do you know that they have videos out? I have them. Where they say they don't even allow their children to play on tablets. Do you know that a lot of the rap artists, the Beyoncés, and a lot of these famous rap artists, you understand? The Taylor Swifts, they actually say they do not allow their children or their nieces to listen to their own music. But yet they put it out.
Mm-hmm.
Make that make sense.
For everyone else's children.
For everyone else's children.
That's
Make
crazy.
that make sense.
That's crazy.
I literally have video where a lot of our artists, a lot of these people who created the very technology that we're talking about, and these tablets and iPads, they literally say they do not allow their children. They don't allow their children to sit up there and watch and listen to this stuff.
Wow.
Make that make sense.
Well, we got to be intentional about raising our kids.
Yeah,
you know,
that's for sure.
That's 100%. So when we talk about behavior modification, you're an expert, okay? And I've watched some of your videos, and so some of our guests can go watch some of your videos because they're very interesting. But tell me about, you go into the house and you go in there with authority, and you get these young boys. A couple of them I watched where you got this young boy and you interview the mama in front of the boy, and then you take the boy and I don't know what you do. I didn't get to watch the whole thing, but tell me about your process.
Right. That's one thing I can't do too much.
Okay.
I can give you little. The reason why is because some clown would try to take what I do and what we do and duplicate this for bad reasons.
Oh, yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
I've had these people reach out with fake accounts. If you look on my social media right now, you can pull it up on TikTok. You're going to see 12 different accounts on me. And these people have 600,000, 900,000 followers under a fake account as the prison doctor. One was mine. They hacked it, and now they're in control of an account that has over 900,000. Pull it up on TikTok right now. Over 900,000 people thinking they're following me and looking for help, potentially, could be contacting some pervert or some child molester and going to them homes. You understand?
That's terrible.
So for the reasons of that, I can't tell you the exact procedure because I do not and cannot afford for anyone to go in a home under my name and victimize a child. I won't let it happen.
I didn't even think about that, but you're exactly right.
That's pull up TikTok and watch what you're about to see.
Wow.
But what's crazy too is like how naive our children are. So 5, 6, 7, 8, I have a 13-year-old and a 10-year-old, and they're just so naive when it comes to, oh, well, I know this person, and I'm like, no, you don't.
Right.
This person's it has one post, like, I can tell it's a spam account. And you're trying to say that because you know the name of, John Smith or whatever, you think it's that person, and it's not. These people, these hackers, I can't even imagine if they get in to your world and pretend to be who you are, and then people are searching for help, and they could be getting a nightmare.
Well,
absolutely.
Like he just said, a child molester or someone that uses what he does to get in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's insane to think about, but it's reality.
It's reality.
It is, 100%.
So I have millions of people right now that are literally following fake accounts. And this is why I agreed and wanted to do, one of the reasons I wanted, not only because you guys are nice people, but also because I wanted to give more exposure to anyone who's hearing this stuff, who may be looking for me or trying to follow my social media. Be careful on the fake content. Be careful on the fake pages. If you're not following official Prison DR on TikTok, you're not following me. Official Prison DR. People are following too many fake accounts and DMing these people because I read them.
Yeah.
And they're literally DMing and say, hey, I need help. And some of them clowns, whoever this person is, they respond.
Wow.
And they'll push like or call me on this number. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then when I report it, it gets they're not taking it down.
That's crazy. Why don't they take it down?
I've been contacted by the Secret Service because my team reached out to the Secret Service. I'm now going to reach out to Trump again because he knows of our organization. His staff does, and took us out to Jupiter, Florida. So I'm very familiar with Trump, and he knows about our organization. Some of his staff members are in touch with me to this day. And I'm going to try to get them to get involved in this.
Yeah.
Because that is a shame.
It is. They need to take it down.
It's dangerous.
They need to take it down.
They need to take that down.
Yeah.
But TikTok is set up in a way where it's almost like, once they steal or hack your account, it's almost impossible to get it taken down.
Wow.
So we're struggling with that to this day.
That's crazy.
Well, and you also don't want people to think, even if they're maybe trying to do good, there's a method and a reasoning, and you're the professional. You and your team are the ones who have studied, learned, gone into people's homes. You know what best practices, worst practices, how to treat one kid versus another kid. And if you put too much out there, someone like me or you could watch it and be like, oh, okay, well, I know how to do this now.
Right.
And even if it's not, and obviously there's reasons why he puts out what he does on his TikTok. And then there's these other people putting stuff out that could be completely misled information.
Absolutely.
Well,
that is my greatest concern.
Well, his mission is good.
Right.
And people will take that and do just crazy things with it.
That's wild.
Let me give you an example, one more, and we can move on.
Yeah.
My Facebook account, I was at, I think somewhere around, for Facebook, I was maybe like 300,000 on Facebook.
Wow.
Somebody created another fake Facebook account under my name. And so one of my elderly clients who was doing research, elderly, when I say elderly, I'm talking about like 80, 85, was doing research and wanted to see about my program, and what I do to help children. She was struggling with her grandchild. She went on my supposedly thought my Facebook, and the first thing that popped up was porn. Can you imagine that? An 80 or 85-year-old grandmother pushing up looking for me to help her grandchild. She's pushing up, and the first thing some clown got on there is some damn porn.
That's crazy.
This is the struggle with social. This is why social media is so dangerous.
Right. Yeah.
Because you can pretend to be anything you want, and our children are easily influenced, and they have so much access to this stuff. And so much false information is just spewed all over social media. That's why it's a problem.
Yeah. We had a guest a few weeks back, Dr. Mickey Edwards. She was a principal of the high school, retired principal from the high school, but she was talking about social media and the dangers of it. And she was in the school system, which I'm assuming you probably work with some of the school systems too. It takes a whole village to keep a kid safe. Moms, dads, yourself and your organization works, I'm sure, with the school. So what about your help? You talked about how you have a team. How big is your team?
It's varies. I mean, we have prison doctors spread out throughout the country, so it's growing.
Yeah.
We have a pretty substantial team.
So you got people that do administrative stuff, and you're the ringleader of that. And so do you guys have? What do you do, especially since your team is abroad? I guess you kind of lead. It's a different style of leadership too. And so on this podcast, we try to talk about leadership.
Sure.
And so in addition to the mission that you have, strategically thinking, you have to put together a plan and a strategy for what is your long-term vision? What's your plan, and how are you going to get there?
Well, in regards to the team, we have a very, very strong team. These people are smarter than me. My board of directors are some of the greatest people I've ever known. Shout out to Nico Karatassos. Nico owns Atlanta Fish Market, Bones, Chops, all in Buckhead. Nice. Nico is one of my board members, one of my greatest friends. He does a lot for the organization. We have Joe Hibachi. He's an entertainment lawyer. He's a great guy. He deals with the housewife stuff. He was little babies, which I don't, whatever. But Joe's a great guy. He's done a lot for us. We have just a great team. We have the people that I have that are supporting me and pushing me are people who are smarter than me.
Yeah.
Their bucks are much longer than mine, believe me. We have a lot of support nationwide through people who just are some of the most wonderful people all through California, Hollywood, Diane, just a lot of people that are very, very well off here in Georgia and abroad that love the work that I do.
Right.
And they support, they donate, and whatever I need, they make sure I have. And I'm thankful to them.
Yeah.
You understand?
Oh, yeah.
Because it takes a community.
Yep.
And I'm just thankful that I have people like that who value the work and see the work that I do and encourage me to keep doing it.
That's
I think, too, I look at you as like a leader when you go into some of these people's homes. It's like, some of those kids may have not had anyone like you in their life, so it's like you could be a father figure, you could be a mentor to these kids, which I'm sure that you are. But those are some of the first leaders that are like a leader that some of these kids have ever seen before.
Sure.
Besides the people on the iPad or the social media. And
isn't that sad?
Yeah.
Isn't
Well,
that sad?
I mean, yes, it is very sad, but it's good that you're
Sure.
taking over.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah, because their first leader should be their dad, and their dad is still God. But that's not how it is, because dad is not in the home. So these kids are gravitating to gangs and other things for acceptance. You understand? To be raised. Because dad is not in the home. And if dad is not in the home and dad is not teaching God, dad is not showing examples of God, then what is a child to do? You understand? It's very bad.
It takes me back, and we talked about it just briefly before, also about the movie Courageous that I watched, 10 to 15 years ago. In this Christian-based film called Courageous, and there's some law enforcement officers that are in a little team, but the whole movie is based on the fact that fatherlessness homes creates the gang activity and the acceptance from that sort of thing. And so when you said suburbs earlier, you're not talking about only in the cities. You're talking about out in the outskirts, suburbs.
Yeah, in the suburbs, whether they white, black, or Mexican, whatever. I'm talking about in more areas where they're privileged. You understand? Where the wealth thing is more prominent. In those communities, I do a lot of house calls. I've done several celebrities that I can't name.
Right.
But I've done high-profile celebrities, very, very much so. And these are people that got multi-millions of dollars, you understand? But they're struggling with their children. So this is a epidemic all over this nation.
Wow.
We're in a national crisis. Whether America wants to recognize that and everybody wants to sweep it under the rug and go into your own private homes and shut the door and ignore this stuff, we are in a national crisis with our children. That is a fact. And if anybody doesn't recognize that and want to accept that and start acting upon that, is just in the way, and they're going to regret it later. I guarantee you.
I agree with you 100%.
Wow. Yeah, he's firing me up.
I mean, I'm like,
ready to go take it on.
You think about it, like you go into restaurants now, mom and dad, or just mom, or just dad, or whoever, and I try my hardest not to. You're on your phone. Then your kids get, here's a tablet. Just play it here so that mom and dad can have a conversation while we're at dinner here. And then
that's what I was talking about earlier.
It's mind blowing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we got to quit doing that.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. Because what he's fighting is that, and we all think, oh, we're raising our kids fine, but dude,
That's not how we were raised.
no.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very sad. You go to a dinner table or you go to a restaurant, you're absolutely right. You know, everybody's on the phone, dad and mom. You know, if it's a dad,
Yeah.
everybody's on the phone.
Yeah.
You know, so what time do you have to exchange thought with your child?
Right.
You know, dinner was a time where we used to be able to sit down and exchange thought and conversation and hear about each other's day.
Yeah.
You understand? There was something about, you know, being at home and cooking, where grandma or your mother's in the kitchen and you're having Sunday dinners, you know, you're eating. There was something about watching grandmother and your mother in the kitchen. They were cooking and making up a great meal for the family, and everybody socializing and talking and exchanging thought. There was something about that. Today, it is gone. Mom is not cooking. She's buying Chick-fil-A. Dad is in the streets or he's upstairs playing a video game with his son. You understand? So where is the exchange of understanding each other, of knowing how you are? How can I know you if I don't spend time with you?
Right.
How do you do that? So you wonder why our children are saying, I just don't understand my mom. I don't understand her. And the mothers are going, I don't understand my child anymore. I don't get this. I don't get them. Well, why is that hard for you to understand? Why? If you're gone for 18 hours out of your day, you're sleeping and you're working, and then you come home and you got to cook and bathe and shower and make dinner and laundry and all this other stuff because you ain't got a man in the house to help you. What time are you spending with your child? How many hours? Let's be real. I want to ask every viewer or listener, how many hours do you literally spend with your child to exchange thought where you're educating them? Right now, the school system is educating your children.
Right.
And you may not approve of the way the school system is educating your children. The school system should not be raising your child. You should be raising your child. Does that make sense?
It makes a whole lot of sense. It makes perfect sense.
Well, and it's like internal for me. I'm like, you know, personally, I'm sitting here like you asked viewers, listeners, hey, how much time do you spend with your kid? Thoughtful, impactful, intentional time. And I'm embarrassed to say.
Yeah, 100%.
Because typically, you know, we sleep, we work, we come home, then we've got this going on, then you've got that going on, and then, you know, well, I had to bring work home, so let me work for just a little bit longer and then, you know, it's sad in my home. I mean,
the only way, and bless your heart for having that saying that, but the only way to stop that, see, because I'm a person that deals with facts. Let's get to the root of how to solve and stop, because we're dying, we're getting older. So we don't have like another 50 years to sit around and play this game of trying to guess and deny what needs to be done. We know what needs to be done. We just don't want to talk about it and be real with it.
Right.
See, you need to bring back marriage. You need to bring back dad. You need to stop having sex with men that you're not married to, and bringing children in the world. You need to stop doing that.
Right.
If you don't have dad in the home, because that dad brought balance, right? So dad was the breadwinner. Dad was the one going out there making money for the most part, and mom would do something from home sometimes, right? Where she could be home.
Right.
But if dad is not in the house, then mom is forced to be out the house because somebody got to pay the bills. You understand? Yeah. Who's going to suffer behind that? The children are. So until we bring back dad and that sense of balance, there's no balance in the home no more. And it's broken. And we can skirt around this all day long and talk about, well, single mom and single dads can do it. Yeah, you can do it. But by the grace of God, because you have a lot of wonderful single parents who are doing wonderful jobs with their children, raising them by themselves. It can be done. But that's the exception, not the rule. That's the exception.
Yep.
When you have a father in the home, your odds are much better in raising a successful child and doing it in the way God intended for it to be done. Anything less than that, we're just playing a game and wasting time.
Maddie, you're not the only one embarrassed over there. I'm over here like, man, I have screwed up. And I think I have good kids. My daughter works, and my oldest daughter works at the Chick-fil-A, you know, but she works and I work, and I haven't had a conversation over 10 minutes with her in 2 weeks. And I'm sitting here thinking right now, and I'm serious. It's okay. It's not okay. It shouldn't be okay. But we just get to live in life. And so the consequences of that, and man, I so appreciate your passion for what you're doing. And that to me, that's definitely from God. His passion for what he's doing. It's a ministry, and so that's definitely from God. So how often, Myron, do you see a kid? Tell me a success story where you've had you got a call, you went in, the kid was cussing his mama out or hitting her or whatever, and you integrated your program into their house, and then you delivered. Tell me about that. A change.
I don't mean to sound any kind of way when I say this, because some people will take it and say, "Oh, he's just being arrogant." No, I'm not. Over 80% of the house calls that we've done has been some form of success story. We rate that success by the child is no longer doing the things that they once were. We rate that success by in a 6-month interval or a 1-year interval. If the mother is saying, "Well, look, my child is going to school, his grades are improving, he's no longer, beating me up or cursing me out," that's a success.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
100%.
So that's how we rate it, and we have over an 80% success rate over 10 years that I've been doing this.
Wow.
80%.
That's great.
And that was the thing that, whether you like him or not, I'm not going to say if I'm a Trump guy or not a Trump guy. That was something that he acknowledges, that he liked the program of what he had learned about it, what he heard about it, the information he got. His staff was blew away by it. And this was before he won. This was in October of last year in Jupiter, Florida, at his golf resort. But his staff was blew away at the fact of what I was doing, that no one else was doing that. And to this day, they still follow and stay in touch through social media.
But I'm not a social media. I mean, I do some social media for work and stuff, but I had never heard of your stuff either. So the exposure you talked about earlier, I mean, our little show here, I don't know how big
Did
our
you say
audience is.
little? This is a big, for those viewers, this is a big, beautiful studio. Are you kidding me?
Well,
Everything in here is new, guys. Don't let them fool you.
A lot of blood, sweat, and tears with it.
Yeah. We're volunteer time, but look, if we have 100 viewers or 1,000 or whatever it is, I don't know what it is, but for them to see and hear the passion for what you're doing, is certainly going to be eye opening for those people. And look, I hope our show gets out there and we tackle the world. That's certainly why we do it. We want to get a message out. We want to make an impact. And so the impact that you're making on the world, to me, is huge. So we focus on our kids, okay? And that's where the fruit is on the vine, right? For the picking. And so when you focus on the children and the kids and the youth, that is what changes the generations. And so the work that you're doing is sure to impact the world that we live in. And the passion that you have for it is exciting. So tell me, can you talk about your dad at all? Tell me about your dad and the relationship that y'all had.
That's a tough one. My dad was my hero. Greatest man I ever known. Had an impeccable reputation in the music industry. I never heard my father curse, not one time.
Really?
Everybody, that's the one thing that I remember very well about my father, is that he was a very great man, very well respected man. He played with Frank Sinatra, Miles Davis, the Temptations, the Dramatics.
Think about those artists right there compared to today's artists.
Oh my God! Yeah, see,
Back
then,
golly.
back then, groups called themselves the Supremes, meaning the highest. Groups called themselves the Miracles. You know what I mean? Things of greatness. But this is my father, and it talks about all the great people he worked with. But it says he worked. He says Eli Fontaine worked with such superstars as Frank Sinatra, Isaac Hayes, Marvin Gaye, the Temptations, the Supremes, and Mavis Staples and Johnny Taylor. Most recently, he toured with the Dramatics and has worked with numerous other entertainers. Mr. Fontaine is survived by, for Myron, all my brothers. Yeah.
That was his obituary in the paper? Or?
Yeah, that was an article they did on my dad in the Michigan Chronicle. But yeah, my father was he's a great man. I mean, he was he was just a great man. He was always on tour with Motown in Europe. They were touring back in those days. But Dad made sure that his kids was taken care of. I'm the youngest of 4 other brothers. But he made sure everybody was taken care of. He's a great man. He done a lot from Motown Records, him and Berry Gordy and Smokey Robinson. My father was the band coordinator, so he was the one that would, when they would do the tours, all the Supremes, the Motown Review, my father was the one saying, hey, Earl Van Dyke, Thomas Bean Bowles, Joe Hunter, yeah, you play, go with Marvin, yeah, you gonna play with them today. Stevie, he was that guy.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and he played all them saxophone riffs of my dad. If you look up Eli Fontaine, you'll see a lot of them songs as my father. So yeah, great guy, love him, miss him. But he raised me in a way that, even though he was gone as well a lot, doing tours, and I went to prison at a young age, but he instilled in me the sense of community. My father was the guy, he would pull up and every kid on the block was getting ice cream. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He was buying ice cream at the truck, for everybody. My family was never a racist family. My dad, you would think, you coming out of the hood in Detroit, it was nice, but it was still the hood. It was predominantly black. There's a few whites in there, the Mexicans around the corner, whatever, but I wasn't raised racist, and that's a big thing in our communities today is racism.
Yeah.
My dad never used the word, an inflammatory word against her. As a matter of fact, he probably would have tore my head off if I did, and so I wasn't raised like that. I was raised to love people, not because of your color. That's the most stupidest thing in the world, to hate somebody because of your damn color. That's the most stupidest. Yeah. I can't even think of nothing more stupid.
I know it.
But a lot of people in our communities have that. And that's why we don't get nothing done, quite frankly, because we can't come together because we're too divided in this country. So our kids pay a price, whether you want to see that or not. If you are a racist, kids going to pay a price for that down the line.
Oh, yeah.
Because of that.
100%.
So those I'm sorry, I went off on a rabbit here there. But
no, that's good. So tell me, and I'm just curiosity here. But your dad was a great dude, great man. And you had alluded to the fact that you had hung out with some people that led you the wrong direction. So let's talk about that for just a minute, because I think it's very important to bring that to the top. Sure. I tell my kids all the time, if you lay down with dogs with fleas, you get fleas. Mm-hmm. And so you got to be careful who you run with. Yeah. But talk about that. How did you get mixed up in that? And what could you say to help protect people?
Absolutely. Don't be a follower. That would be one thing I would say. Don't be a follower. I was a follower. I grew up very spoiled, because I was privileged. I had the first, rabbit coats and snakeskin coats, back in the day, when you're a little kid, 5 and 6 year old, and you walking around with a rabbit coat. You may not know what that means or what that is, but them other adults going, boy, he wearing a rabbit coat or a lamb skin coat, you know what I mean? And so my father made sure that we were, we had things, you know what I mean? My first bike was from James Brown.
Wow.
Yeah, cool. Masonic Temple. I went to Masonic Temple for a sound check. My dad was doing a sound check there with the Motown people, and James Brown was there. This was, back in the day, and James Brown had a bike for me on the side of the stage. I don't know if my dad went and bought it and had James Brown give it to me, but hey, come here, little Eli. Brought me I got a bike for you. So I heard it's your birthday. I got something on the side of the stage. Go get that. And open it up his Schwinn bike, So
wow.
Grew up very privileged. And sometimes you can be too privileged as a child. Because when you're so used to hearing yes, and you're so used to getting what you want, the moment you don't hear yes, and the moment you don't get what you want, that could be a problem. And it'll make you do things that, you don't want to do because you're so spoiled. And me leading that life and living and being around the wrong people at that time was primarily because I was entitled, selfish, and spoiled.
Okay.
And that led me to gravitate towards people that weren't so nice at that time. And that cost me.
Yeah. Entitled.
Yeah. And when parents, grandmothers are guilty of it as well. I did a house call yesterday, and the grandmother says, yeah, I'm guilty of that. I do spoil my grandkids too much. So, giving a child, just because you have money or you have means, doesn't mean you should give your child everything that you think they should want, because you need to give them what they need. But oftentimes parents want to relive their childhood through their children. So because you wanted that when you were a kid and couldn't afford it, so now you just flush everything on your kid. But you're creating a monster by doing that. There's nothing wrong with balance. It's got to be balanced. It's absolutely perfectly fine to buy your child toys and gifts and fine things. Of course you're going to do that. But sometimes it gets overboard. You know what I mean? A 4-year-old child doesn't need to be wearing a $10,000 pair of shoes. You know what I mean? A 5-year-old child doesn't need to be walking around with an iPhone 25. You you understand?
Yes, sir.
And that's where we're going wrong. We're doing too much and not enough of what's needed.
It's like compensating for not being around.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like you talk about the iPhone or you just said like a 5-year-old shouldn't be walking around with a new iPhone. Well, I'm the first one to be like, yep, both my kids got iPads for Christmas one year, and whatever, because I don't know if it's compensating for what I didn't have as a kid or like something, but I'm going to unpack
I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to tell you something. When the owners of this stuff is telling you, I don't let my kids listen to it or play with it, yet I invented it and I'm telling you to buy it as a consumer, but I'm telling you on the same tone, it's not in my house. I don't let my kids play with that stuff.
Yeah,
Watch out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. So speaking about money, I also was following your stuff, and I heard you say one time, I don't want the money to affect the mission.
Absolutely.
Talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely, no problem. Because oftentimes we put money ahead of children. Oftentimes, when I talk to people about partnering or getting something done in regards to children, in some kind of way they wiggle in the word. Well, how much is it for me? How much does this pay? Or how much are you giving or to do this? Or how much can I make if we partner together? What is going to be split? Those kind of conversations turn me off in a bad way. Yeah. I actually have fired people, let people go from my organization because they were about the money as opposed to the mission. I've talked to legislatures here in Georgia that have put so much red tape in front of helping children or doing something where it is proven that this will work or this can help a child. I've literally had legislatures here in Georgia, high-profile ones. If you don't believe me, I can prove it, where they have literally put red tape ahead of me doing something in the community to help a child. You understand that?
Oh, 100%.
I can prove it.
Yeah.
So this ain't just talk. So this is what our world has become. It has become, children have become on the back burner, right? Everybody is on for their self-interest. And children are suffering. And see, I come from the old school where, men would give your life for a child.
Right.
You would give your life for a child or a woman that's in despair or a woman being hurt or we're in a society today where people are closing doors and say, mind your own business. You could drive down the street and see an 80-year-old woman getting raped or victimized, and somebody's going to say, man, mind your business. Let that go, bro.
Turn the
other way. Act like you didn't see it. How can a man turn the other way of watching a woman get raped or beat or a child about to go to prison?
A man
can't. Or
can't.
Get killed.
A man can't. Come on. You hear me?
I like you.
Okay. A man ain't going to walk.
Emphasis.
Yes, sir. A man
can't.
A man can't.
Amen.
But
well said.
But there is male species on the planet today that will let it happen.
Absolutely.
But a man will not.
A man can't.
And so like we talk about when a man comes to the door, the manhood is gone.
It is gone.
Society is part to blame for that.
Absolutely.
As a whole.
As a whole.
Getting away from God's word and getting away from the truth, all that is created what the world calls a man today. And, it's powerful.
Everything has a manual that tells you how it operates, right? Mm-hmm. A car has a manual in the glove box that tells you how to make the car run efficiently. It tells you don't put water in the gas tank. You put what in the gas tank?
Gas.
You put gas. That's common sense, right? Mm-hmm. Common sense, right? So that's the manual for the car. What's your manual as a man? Where do you define or you grasp what you are supposed to do? How do you operate? How do you function? Where do you get it from? What is your manual? See, so my manual, right, is the Bible, right? I don't kick the Quran because there's a lot of good in the Quran. Mm-hmm. But my manual, I call the Bible. It tells me what's right, what's wrong, what's righteous, what's unrighteous, how to behave, what is my function, what is my duty, what is my calling, what is my obligation. It tells you that. Mm-hmm. But if you don't believe in God and you're not reading your manual, it's no wonder why you can say that you're a he, she, her one moment, or you can, wear lipstick and walk around with purses, but yet you were born with genitalia of a man. You understand? It's easy to get confused on your gender or your role in life as a woman or a man.
Right.
If you're not operating out of the manual. If you want to create your own manual, go ahead. That's what people are doing. They're writing their own manual and living by their own terms. You can't do that.
No.
And that's what's going wrong.
But then you see all of that all over social media and all over the news and it's almost glorified. And that's what our kids are watching. That's what our kids are also, not just the rap videos and all that where they're, dehumanizing women or whatever, but it's also made in a positive light to where the generation coming up doesn't see it as, as bad or whatever you will.
I think back to, and my wife and I were having this conversation the other day, where the music, look, we recovered everything, but there was a time in my childhood where I listened to some filthy stuff. Okay, I did. And there was no good in the music that I was listening to. And fortunately, I came back to the book that you taught, the Holy Bible, where, that's where I got that's how I learned to be a man. And of course, I've surrounded myself with some good men. That's the other thing I was thinking about while we were sitting here talking. I remember when I grew up, I had a dad and a stepdad, but my dad had 4 or 5 friends that really helped raise me. And you think about I think about the principles that I learned from them through the years, and I think about not having a dad. You would just go to the wayside, and you would be. And the Bible talks about, the desires of your heart, if you don't follow God, are really bad. And so when there's no man, that's how they get there.
One thing in church this morning, it's what would Jesus do?
Yeah.
Like if you have to say, would Jesus do this? Yes, he would. Okay, good. If you have some questioning about it, then maybe you should ponder on it a little bit more.
Right.
Go to the Bible.
Right.
He'll show you if you're supposed to do it or not. And then if the answer is no, then...
We live in a godless world.
Yeah, that's true.
People don't believe in Jesus. They don't believe in God. They don't. It's like you said earlier, we were talking about, and you were saying how these rappers and certain artists and the Taylor Swifts and all these different people, after they get an award, the first thing they say is, I want to thank my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for this award. Jesus Christ had nothing to do with that award. You got that award based on being nasty and raunchy and degrading women and destroying a civilization of children. And you got the audacity to say, I want to thank my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for helping me get this award, for blessing me. Would you stop it?
Yeah.
But see, that's the hypocrisy of the world we live in. The hypocrisy. And the people that sitting there in the audience are sucking it up. And these are grown people. These aren't kids. These are grown people who would applaud that and sit there and go, oh, what a wonderful speech. Yes, thank God for he did that. As an adult, how can you put that together? Righteousness and unrighteousness don't go together. The Bible says you must choose today, one or the other. What Lord, who would you serve?
Right.
Period.
That's right.
Period.
You're preaching now.
Period. So this world is a godless world. Anytime you have a woman by the name of, I call her Dirty Red. They call her sexy. Her name is Sexy Red. I call her Dirty Red because I refuse to call. Ain't nothing sexy about her. She goes on TV and she gyrates her behind like a dog. And every every song rap she has is talking about defiling her body to men, multiple men. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, I know.
Multiple men.
I haven't heard that.
This insane demon has over 3 million followers, and most of them are young people that are. Imagine that. We live on a planet with 6.7 billion people on the earth itself. I think it's like 300 and something million in the nation. You are listening to this woman, 3 million out of that 330 just in this country. That's a huge chunk of people that are being influenced by that fool. You understand? We are in a godless country. The more raunchier and nasty it is, the more our children and people gravitate to it. If you look at all these artists on here today, the more revealing you can be clothes, the less you wear. The more you can be slick with your mouth and defame people, the more your likes go up, the more your views go up. But you put a good righteous woman or man on there who's just saying something nice. It ain't even got to be spiritual.
Yeah.
Just something wholesome. They get 5 likes.
Something good.
They
Something
don't
good. They
get
get 5 likes. That's boring.
Yep.
People don't want to see it. Kids don't want to watch that.
That's
You
crazy.
understand? That's the world
He's
we live in.
exactly right.
That's like taboo.
Jesus said the road is narrow to life, and the gate is wide to destruction. We talked about that on this show.
Mm-hmm.
That's a prime example, and he's exactly right. The nastier it is, the more depraved it is, the more views and the more mess.
Yeah, so my pain and my passion, it comes from the realization that we are failing our children, and we are only allowed it a certain amount of time in our lifetime.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And see, I don't play with my time. I spent 20 in prison, lost. You understand? So for me, life is serious. Time is serious. I don't have time to play games with words and lie and hide the truth and try to sound good for sound bites. See, that's not going to get us anywhere. You understand?
Yes, sir.
You'll be remembered for nothing when you die.
That's right. That's right.
So for me, my passion excuse me,
You're good.
is our children.
Mm.
Go ahead.
You got me too.
It's not a game.
No.
And our society is playing a game at the cost of children. It's not right. It's not fair. They're innocent. Children are innocent. They should have a right. We talk about liberty and justice for all. It's a bunch of malarkey. Who cares about our kids? When is sacrifice going to come for our children? When are we as a country, as a people, as a family, when do we sacrifice? We put down what we want for what's needed for our children. When do we do that?
We don't do it enough. We do not do it enough. And the impact that you have, your passion for this is contagious. Because I'm literally over here and I'm fired up. I'm ready to go and help some kids, starting with mine. So I don't know about you, Maddie, but I've certainly felt some of that. Starting with my house, of course. Listen, I've stood and said to my kids and my wife, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. I've said that, and when we do, but having a renewed sense of passion for that is something that I've taken away today, 110%. And two, how can we help?
That's what
Myron,
I was just about to ask.
what can we do?
Serve.
Serve.
Yeah, it comes to that. Everybody, first thing out their mouth when that question is asked is always money. Well, you can donate, which is fine. Believe me, we do need it. But for me, it's serve. It's greater than that for me. But if you want to serve, if you want to volunteer, if you want to start in your home, like you guys have both committed to saying that you're going to do better in your home, to me, that's bigger than money. Just do that. You know what I mean? The world will be a better place.
Yeah. Wow.
I can't wait for this episode. This is going to be, to get this word out, I feel like the conversation that we've had here, we've always said this from day one on this podcast. It doesn't matter if we impact one person or 7 million people. As long as we're impacting one, and we've got 2 right here that I know have been impacted, I can't wait for everyone else to hear this story.
Well, the humility that he has too is good, just to be a part of that. Well, I can't thank you enough,
Absolutely, it's been a
Myron,
pleasure.
for coming. I really do appreciate it. Your time. I know your time is important, and part of my journey to make an impact was the recognition that our time is limited, like you said a while ago. And so, if our audience is listening, your time is running out. And so what will you do to impact the world?
Amen. Well said.
So
Your time is running out. What will you do to impact the world, starting with your own children?
that's right.
Well
Start
said.
with your own house, and then what's your impact, man?
Yeah.
So
Well, they can follow me if you don't mind.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely.
They
Do
can,
it.
they can follow me on Instagram at the Prison Doctor. ThePrisondr is Instagram. TikTok is official Prison DR. Make sure you're following official. If it does not say official Prison DR, that is not my TikTok. My website is www.theprisondr.org. www.theprisondr.org. My email is simply theprisondoctor@gmail.com, spelled out. Theprisondoctor@gmail.com, spelled out, is my email. Please reach out, 1-800-369-8932. If you are struggling with a child or you know of anyone struggling with a child and in need of help, anywhere in the country, in all 50 states, we service 1-800-369-8932. And thank you both. You've done a wonderful job. You are great interviewers, both you guys, and I wish and pray you much success.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.